Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard NFL Week 2. We had an eventful Week 1. A very eventful Week 1. We were a couple seconds away from having the first week in NFL history since, I think, 50 years ago with 2 ties. We got 1 tie in overtime. We almost had 2. Came down to the final field goal that the Steelers ended up making. But eventful kickoff week, some surprises. Smokey, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Better than... Who can I pick out here? I am going to say better than Cowboys fans, because they were probably the worst team of the week.
Yeah, and they lost their quarterback.
Yeah, he's going to be out for a couple months from what I saw.
Yeah, they're not looking too good.
No. I hate that I have CD Lamb in a few leagues now.
Oh yeah, he's going to lose some value.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure, without Dak. We have Cooper Rush instead.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah, that team's not winning any of those games.
Probably not. It's going to be... I'm not complaining. I don't like the Cowboys, so it's fine.
But why do teams do that? There are better backups out there available. I don't know if it's a cap situation with the Cowboys or what, but Cooper Rush is not going to win you a single game. Why do you have him, and why is he your number 2? Maybe a practice squad guy. That'd be a great choice there, but why is he your backup? That guy is worse than probably, I don't know, 15, 20 other quarterbacks that are backups right now, and probably 10 better free agents out there that are not playing.
Could name about 2 or 3 USFL guys there as well.
Yeah.
For
Absolutely. Sure. That doesn't make sense.
Well, he's been there for a while now, so he's been their career backup, I guess. He stepped in last year. Didn't do too badly, but I don't necessarily think that they're gonna, necessarily beat the world. But we'll get into that. Quick segment that I wanted to insert. I'm going to be doing a weekly MVP power ranking, and I'm starting week 1, so I'm going to have it concise throughout the whole season. There's also a poll on my channel. It's going to be there every week where you can vote for your current MVP. If the season ended that week, who would be your MVP? And I have my top 5 for this week. I'm going to go through them real quick. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes at the moment. He's been by far the most impressive quarterback. Put up best stat line in week 1 against the Cardinals. Number 2, Justin Herbert. He's looked even better than we not necessarily expected him to, but then he has been the past 2 years, so he just keeps getting better, and he was one of my top 3 MVP candidates going into this year, and that seems validated so far. Number 3, Carson Wentz. So this is a bit of a surprise, but he played well, good passer rating, 4 touchdowns. He can't complain. He played well. He won a close game, and he played clutch. So we know he has it in there. We've seen him perform at that level before. Maybe he'll keep it up. But given it was only the Jaguars. Number 4 is Tua Tagovailoa. Also, to me, not as much of a surprise as it is to many other people, because I really like that offense, and they went up 17-0 against New England in what seemed like 5 minutes of play, and I thought, yeah, the Dolphins are for real. They're for real this year. That offense is maybe the fastest speed-packed offense we've seen ever in the NFL. Pointed out a couple times, but you have Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Raheem Mostert. Those are 3 of the top 5 fastest ball carriers in the NFL. I don't know if we've ever seen that on a team combined ever. So that team's dangerous. I really like the Dolphins, and Tua, he played well. Number 5, Josh Allen against the Rams. 1 interception, which wasn't necessarily his fault. Strong pass rating. Surprisingly to me, he's the number 1 graded quarterback from PFF, but that list also has Patrick Mahomes at number 8. And ever since, I think about 2 years ago, and they started valuing more and more about their whole invention of total quarterback rating, which is a nonsense stat, by the way, and they still insist on it. That source to me hasn't been as valid as some others, or as much as it's regarded in the community in general. But Josh Allen to me number 5. So that's my top 5. Do you have any remarks, anything that's roughly wrong with it?
Yeah, I don't. As far as the general public, I don't think anybody's going to put Wentz in there. I understand why you did that, and you saw something in him this week. And I've always been a Wentz fan. I get it, but most people are not going to give that opportunity to be in that list right this early in the season, because it is Carson Wentz, and he has quite a few bad seasons between him and that MVP run that he was on. But I'm going to give you my top 5 here. Mahomes and Allen and Herbert, I think that's everybody's list, right? That should be everyone
Probably.
at this time. Tua, I like it. I'm going to put Tua at number 5. And if I could take a certain section of the Giants game, I would put Daniel Jones on here. But the first half of that game was really bad, so I can't put him on here yet. But another surprising name that is on my list at number 4 is Kirk Cousins, because he completely dominated. I know a lot of people are just giving Justin Jefferson the credit, which he is. I mean, that dude's like he's gonna have like a Randy Moss type season here, or Cooper Kupp last year. One of those type seasons. I think that's in the cards for him. And if he does that, Kirk Cousins is on this list, and he's probably going to be there to stay unless the bottom falls out of it somewhere.
Yeah, Cousins is completely legitimate. I have no complaints about that. Now, to be clear, I don't believe that Carson Wentz is going to be on this list like after 10 weeks or so when we actually get to MVP voting, but just strictly judging on week 1, I think he's a top 5 quarterback. And I know some people actually commented and said Justin Jefferson as would be their pick at the moment. I can see why. Justin Jefferson is the best player on the Vikings, but to me specifically, and I've drifted more and more into this direction, the most valuable player in today's NFL, it has to be a quarterback. There's no other position that has the potential to be as valuable as the best quarterback in the league. It just doesn't work any other way. It's like saying that your most valuable chess piece is like a pawn. It's not possible as long as there's a queen on the board. Because the game is designed so much for quarterbacks. So quarterbacks are the most valuable players, and I don't see a non-quarterback winning MVP in the very foreseeable future on the current set of rules. So that's my top 5 list. There's yours. You can leave yours in the comments, and obviously go vote on the poll that I posted. We're getting into the predictions here. We have a full slate, starting off with a barn burner: Chargers at the Chiefs. And 2 guys at the top of the MVP list.
It absolutely is. Before we get into it real quick, we'll talk about the results last week. Wasn't good. I mean, I know you don't want to talk about it. I really don't want to talk about it because you did better than me.
Right.
But you ended up with 8 correct picks, which is not bad, and I had 5. So I am...
Wow, you only had
absolutely.
5? Wow.
Out of our disagreements, I think the Dolphins was the only one I got right. You of course picked the Saints, which I should have won that, but I forgot we are in Atlanta, and that's what we do. We lose it in the fourth quarter. But the Falcons absolutely dominated the Saints that entire game. It was just...
Do I misremember, or did you not have the Washingtons?
No, that was my fault there, because that would have given me an extra point, but... You thought I had Washington, but I actually corrected you, and because I was using pronouns instead of actually saying the Jaguars, and it sounded like I was picking the Washington, but I was actually picking the Jaguars.
Okay.
In all fairness, yeah. Actually, we had the tie, so you could say 6.5 to 9.5, but I'm sorry, 8.5. But anyway, no, I'm sorry.
All right. Good start.
It was 5.5 to 8.5 because we both got the Broncos game wrong. I think I wrote...
Yeah. I think a lot of people got that one wrong.
I actually wrote out the total before last night's game because I assumed it was just a done deal that the Broncos were going to win. But
yep.
All right. Nope. Chargers and Chiefs. This should be a shootout. This should be what the Cardinals game should have been last week. It's just the Cardinals weren't quite ready to play on that level. The Chiefs are the most explosive offense in the NFL, like always, like it has been ever since Mahomes got there. Mahomes does look like the MVP at this time, and if he continued to play just like he did against the Cardinals, there is no doubt he is going to win that this season. The Chargers, though, the Chargers were great. I mean, I guess you could say it was the Raiders, but people had the Raiders pegged to be a top 5 team in some cases this year. They really believe in them. But the Chargers came out and pretty much dominated. They did let them catch up close to the end of the game, but luckily they had the game already in the bag at that point. So there you have it, the Chargers. I'm going to pick the Chiefs just because it's at home, because I think these teams are close to being evenly matched, but you got to take the experience of Mahomes over Herbert.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing about this. 55-point over-under. This is they're projecting 8 touchdowns baseline in this game. And I get why. And this is must-watch television. It's great that it's Thursday night. Really hard to pick this one. And I'll make an argument for both teams, and then I'll get to why I pick what I pick. The big argument for the Chargers is defense. The Chargers defense is majorly improved. You added Khalil Mack, you added JC Jackson. Those are 2 arguably top 50 defenders in the league. You still have Joey Bosa, you have Derwin James back healthy. That's a loaded defense, and this is why I'm so high on this team in general, because I know what the offense is and what Justin Herbert is, but the defense now doing its part, you end up winning games like the Raiders, whereas last season, that's the type of game that they didn't quite win all the time, mostly because of defensive issues. Now they're winning these games, and they're going to be super dangerous. Chiefs, well, they're the Chiefs. You start blowing out the Cardinals, and Mahomes is Mahomes. MVP frontrunner from week 1, and nothing really has changed. Don't seem to miss Tyreek Hill too much. You still have a lot of speed at wide receiver, and they are at home. Like I said, Arrowhead is also one of the more impactful home stadiums, and the Chiefs are 4.5-point favorites, probably mostly due to home field advantage. It's a tough one to pick. I'm gonna go with Kansas City as well at this point because of home field. It's early on in the season, and typically what that means is that offenses have a disadvantage against defenses just a little bit, because offenses are more complex on the NFL level than defenses are, so it takes longer for them to click, meaning that excessive stadium noise, especially at a stadium like Arrowhead, is even more impactful early on in the seasons because offenses aren't as fluid in their communication yet. So I'm going to say Chiefs with the slightest of edges, and I'm going to take them to win at home. But it's going to be a great game either way. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't over, by the way, even at 55. Panthers at the Giants.
Oh, man. You know, this is tough. I want to say the Giants have improved. They're still having problems with that offensive line, which as they grow and progress throughout the season, that offensive line should get better, in my opinion. It was a come-from-behind win. Like I said earlier, Daniel looks much improved for part of that game. But then there was the first part of the game where he was basically couldn't complete a pass. It was bad. So it makes it tough. On the other side, the Panthers just blew it. They blew it from the beginning. It was the Browns. You're playing the Browns. I know it was a close game, but it's Jacoby Brissett. I don't know how you picked that game, because I thought I was dead set winning with the Panthers over the Browns. But yeah, you called that. Hey, maybe Jacoby Brissett has improved. Who knows? But Panthers defense can't stop anything if they can't stop the Browns. I'm going to go with the Giants. And you know what? I'm going to pick them to keep improving. Wow. They're going to keep improving, and Daniel Jones is going to take his spot in the top 5 this year.
Wow. Okay. So every win is going to keep you on that bandwagon.
Yes.
Just another week. I like it. Just for the storylines, I'd like it to happen, but I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take Carolina and this one to bounce back. I think I could bring a similar argument for the Panthers this week that I did for the Browns last week. If you remember, I said, if you project it back until last year, Panthers-Browns, you'd pick the Browns hands down. Baker Mayfield is not the difference between those Browns and now the Browns now and the Panthers. He's not the shifter. Now, for the Seahawks and Broncos, you would have thought that Russell Wilson would be the shift that makes you flip your pick. And normally he would be, but of course this week he proved not to be. But Baker Mayfield's not that kind of person, not that kind of player. So pick the Browns there. In this one, compare last year to this year, and we have seen very limited amounts of both these teams so far. The Panthers are slightly better, so I'm going to go with them. I believe both of these, by the way, top 3 running backs on their rosters that get hurt way too much. So potentially fantasy football focus game here. I'll go Carolina. I think the Giants got a bit lucky from time to time as well. I did against Tennessee, but also it's just the offensive failure of the Titans to execute in the second half. It's very similar to the Niners-Bears game, where just end up taking advantage of a team sleeping for an entire half. That's what the Giants did. I don't see them being a winning team this year, even though they beat the Titans, which credit where it's due. I'll take the Panthers to correct their record, ride the ship, and go 1-1 and beat the Giants at home. Dolphins at the Ravens.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Both these teams ended up being 1-0. The Dolphins, some would say that was a surprising win by beating the Patriots and by beating them by that much. I expected the Patriots to put up a fight. I thought that the Dolphins were going to win just because the Dolphins tend to beat the Patriots at home. I did not expect to be a dominant win for the Dolphins. Now, I do like Tua. That is one of my breakouts for this season, and I think he has all the capability he needs to actually pull that off with all of those weapons, like you said. So much speed on that team. The Ravens, on the other hand, Lamar, he looked okay. He doesn't look MVP-like he has in previous seasons. He looked okay, and running the ball is what he does best, so that's what he did. He doesn't have a lot of superstars out there to throw the ball to. And with J.K. Dobbins out, I don't see that running game. I don't see it getting going outside of Lamar. So I am going to stick with the momentum here of the Dolphins and say that they go up there and put one over on the Ravens.
Yep, fully agree. Number one, it took the Ravens a little too long for comfort to beat the lowly Jets, and it was closer for longer than it should have been. And the Dolphins look damn impressive, as I hoped they would, as I thought they would. So I'm absolutely going with the Dolphins bandwagon all the way. If the Niners don't right the ship, I'm going Dolphins this year, or Chargers, maybe one of the two. Big fan. So yeah, Miami all the way. Love that offense. Love to see what they're doing. Taking them to go into Baltimore, make their first real statement win. Actually, the win against the Patriots was also a statement win. So make some waves. Jets at the Browns.
I feel sorry for Jets fans. Like, each year brings new hope to Jets fans, and usually within week 1, or sometimes 2 if they're really lucky, but mostly week 1, all those hopes are thrown out the window. They have to watch 17 games now knowing we're not winning anything, and it happens so often, especially with Joe Flacco there. Joe Flacco actually was a Super Bowl winning quarterback previously, but he is not that guy, and it was actually the defense, as we know, that won that game for them. And it was the whole team, though. I mean, he had some weapons to work with. Right now, he doesn't. He has unproven commodities. He has all these new draft picks that are yet to prove anything in the NFL. So without Zach Wilson, it's not that Zach Wilson's going to show up and just light the world on fire, but I think he's better than Flacco at this point. On the other side, as we talked about, the Browns actually beat the Panthers. It was surprising. So both of these teams have quarterback issues at the moment. But I will go with the running backs of the Browns to just run right over the Jets.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I'm going to take the Browns to beat the Jets. I think you said their hopes get crushed by week 1. I think this time they might have been crushed before the season even kicked off with the Zach Wilson injury, because that was the only bright spot realistically for the Jets to look forward to this whole season. Now he's going to be out for a few weeks, and they're going to start the way they're going to start, which is 0-2 and probably worse than that. So Jets to lose to the Browns in Cleveland. No doubts to me. The Washington's at the Detroit Lions.
Well, this is tough because apparently Carson Wentz is an NFL MVP guy right now. So that does make this tough because we know that his draft enemy is not. But the Lions look good. They actually look good. They pulled off 35 points over the Eagles, which the Eagles looked really good. And that defense is not necessarily a joke. So I was amazed that the Lions, maybe the coach is doing something there. Maybe he is changing the culture. Now, they didn't win, so maybe that's a problem. Maybe they are used to losing, so they just don't pull it through in the end. But man, I kind of want to believe in the Lions. I know you're going to pick the Commanders, so it's going to be tough. But being in Detroit, I am going to go with the Lions to beat the Commanders.
So you're definitely making the fan favorite pick, no doubt about that.
Of course,
I think
because of,
everyone who's not a Commanders fan, and there's probably not a lot of them left, wants to see the Lions win this game, including myself, right? No doubt. With the whole Hard Knocks bias and everything. By the way, I just watched the final episode just today. For some reason, took me a while to get to it. Really good, nice show. They had Eminem at practice. It was interesting. I'm taking the Commanders. Yeah, you kind of took it off the top. I'll take the Commanders. I think Carson Wentz. It's a thing about quarterbacks, right? Carson Wentz looked good. Jared Goff. We know what he is. We know Carson Wentz can be more than that, and I think the team in general has more. He has more weapons on offense to work with, so I believe in them more. Also, they've shown that they could win a game. I'll take the Commanders because I think the Lions probably played one of their better games all year against the Eagles already. I don't think they'll be able to keep that kind of scoring up. So Commanders, for me, it is. Colts at the Jaguars.
This is interesting. Matt Ryan goes out there looking for his first win, a come from behind, which is exactly opposite of what he would have done in Atlanta, because we all know Atlanta always leads the game and then they always lose it at the end. So Matt Ryan was trying to do the opposite here. Unfortunately, due to kicking situations, which happened to apparently every team in the NFL last week, they ended up with a tie, but they should have won that game. It was the Texans, though. Absolutely, they should have won that game. Like we said last week, Davis Mills is the only bright spot on the team. And Pierce doesn't look like he's going to be anything great thus far. Trends and cycles would tell you that. We'll get to them later. On the other side, the Jaguars are much improved, but they couldn't quite pull off the win. It makes me want to believe in Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars and the new coach, but it's still the Jaguars. They had a chance to win that game, and they couldn't quite pull it out. Whereas the Colts, oh man, this is tough. I'm trying to talk myself into either one of these guys, but I really don't know, because that offensive line, which is usually one of the best in the NFL, is torn apart right now. And Matt Ryan was getting handled in the early points of the game there. And he is not mobile, whereas Trevor Lawrence is. All right, I guess I'll stick. I don't even know if it is the favorite anymore, but I'll stick with the Colts on the road.
Yeah, I don't know who's the favorite in this one either. It's not easy. The odds makers like Indianapolis. I think that's probably just veteran presence and like track record from last season. From what I've seen purely in week one, these are probably very evenly matched teams, but I'm going to agree with you for now and give the benefit of the doubt to Matt Ryan over the more inexperienced Trevor Lawrence and say that they're going to right the ship. They had obviously no excuse not winning that game against Houston. I think we all agree on that, and they're going to have to get on their legs and get going because the AFC is tough as nails. We know that for a fact. We see what the West is doing, the East is doing. You're not making the playoffs going 9-8 or 8-9 in the AFC this year. It's not happening. So the Colts missed the playoffs in tragic fashion last year. They want to make it in. You guys are winning games, and this is another must-win game that they have to take care of at Jacksonville. So I'll take them to do it. Bucks at the Saints.
Well, if you like field goals, you're gonna love the Bucks this season. Hey, you should have drafted their kicker because they're having problems completing drives right now. It appears to be. I know Mike Evans did a wonderful catch and run there, but other than that, like that whole game against the Cowboys, who are not very good at all right now, it's just a lot of field goals. On the other side, the Saints, like I just said, they came from behind, and Jameis Winston looked like a professional quarterback for 1/4 of this game. But at the first 3 quarters of that game, he was getting handled. So I think that's going to happen here. I think the Bucks defense is way too good. You got Winfield and Barrett out there. This is going to be tough. It's going to be tough on Jameis. That defense is much better than the Falcons. I don't think they're going to give it up in the 4th quarter like the Falcons did. And the Bucks, it's still Tom Brady. They're not setting the world on fire, but it's Tom Brady. And the more the weapons come back, the more he's going to accomplish with them. Julio Jones, he looked good for 1 catch there. I'll take the Bucks on the road.
I will agree with that for the exact reason you basically delivered. The Bucks defense compared to the Falcons defense is night and day. And that expecting a relatively similar performance from the Saints, they're not going to win the game. I cannot put into words how much I want to root for the Saints in this one, because for some reason I've always really liked Jameis Winston, and I've really liked rooting for him, really wanting him to win when he was with Tampa Bay. Now when he's with New Orleans, just the same way. I like Jameis Winston. He's just one of those quarterbacks I just want him to win. So rooting for him to get it right, especially having the injury troubles that he's had and never really quite breaking into that tier of top 10, top 15 quarterbacks, which he was expected to do for, well, his entire career so far. Never has been able to. Hoping that he puts it together. I'm picking the Bucs because I like that defense a lot. Patriots at the Steelers.
Well, the Patriots are probably in the position that the entire world wants to see if you are outside of Boston or somewhere around New England. If you're not from Rhode Island or somewhere like that, you want to see the Patriots fail, right? I mean, we all wanted that for many, many years, and now that they are near the bottom of the pack, it just feels right, but it also feels wrong because it's not normal. Mac Jones is injured. He's dealing with his back situation, so he's not going to be playing at 100%. I'm sure he'll be out there from the reports I'm reading right now. And, Belichick, he's going to want him out there if at all possible. We don't want to go back to Brian Hoyer at this point because you're definitely not winning anything there. But this defense, the Steelers' defense is on fire. The offense, it took them quite a while to get going. They just weren't having it. Trubisky was out there running for his life at some point. But that defense is amazing. I think the defense this is going to be a defensive battle probably, unless somehow Trubisky can start hitting all these weapons downfield that he has. A lot of great players on that team if he can utilize them. Najee's having some problems at the moment too, but I'll stick with the Steelers to win this at home.
All right. So there's 2 major injuries that play factors into this, and you've alluded to both of them kind of directly or indirectly. Mac Jones is one of them, obviously, because of the Patriots need him to be around at quarterback to be at full strength 100%. Didn't look good against the Dolphins at all. I attribute that mostly to the Dolphins being really good than the Patriots being really bad. Like, the Patriots aren't going to have a 4 or 5 win season as long as Belichick's there. It's just not going to happen realistically. But I will say, without Mac Jones, the offense is a bit anemic. If he's playing, and the other one, by the way, is TJ Watt, who is going to be out for the Steelers and probably going to be out for a few weeks. Possibly up to 6 to 8 weeks. So that is a big blow because that's the sack leader from last year, Defensive Player of the Year. That's a big presence along the defensive line that the Patriots won't have to worry about this week. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually pick New England here because it's rare to see them lose back-to-back games. Typically, it's just not something that really happens. Pittsburgh is coming off that marathon game against the Bengals, which may have been the craziest Week 1 game of all time, or pretty close at least. So I'm going to predict a little bit of a hangover for Pittsburgh there, and the Patriots are going to profit and win this game. Falcons at the Rams.
This is almost a classic matchup at this point. I feel like the Falcons at the Rams have happened maybe twice during the most previous playoff run, and somehow we kept meeting them through the seasons also. But right now, this is totally different teams from those days. Matt Stafford didn't look great, and I know he's dealing with a back issue too, so who knows how that's going to work out. The team just looked bad. I mean, the Bills went in there and rolled right over them easily. They won from the jump. But that's the Bills, so you can say what you want about that. Maybe they're just that good, and the Rams can get it together. I want to find a reason to say that Atlanta could win this, but I don't know. I mean, maybe since they dominated for 3/4 of that game, if we can somehow pull this together and finish a game ever. Mariota wasn't bad. He was not great, but he wasn't bad. But I don't know. And there's still a side of me that wants to see Atlanta go ahead and lose and bring Desmond Ridder in too. So there's that. The favorites are going to be the Rams, especially being at home. You know what? One more time. If I get behind, I'll make it up later. I'm going with the Falcons to beat the Rams.
Okay. So I'm going to pick the Rams, maybe kind of unsurprisingly, and here's why. I think this is a high-pressure game. This is a very early must-win situation for the Rams, because you're not easily going down 0-2 coming off the season they've had. That's going to be a real bad look. So this is a must-win game, because the Falcons are supposed to be an easy game for them. If you look at their schedule, it's a relatively tough schedule. You're in what you're expecting to be a tough division. And you're going to play a lot of strong teams, so you got to beat the Falcons. As for Atlanta, I think if they went to win that game in New Orleans, the odds makers would have reflected it with a little bit more respect. Now, I don't like the odds at all because the Rams are 10.5-point favorites. That is way too much. Excessively too much, because Matthew Stafford didn't just look not good, he looked pretty bad against the Bills. Now, granted, the Bills may be the best roster top to bottom in the league, but that offense did not look good. Cam Akers did not exist. Allen Robinson did not exist. The whole fantasy community was up in arms about it. The Rams got to pick it up. They got to pick it up fast. I hope they don't. Rooting for the Falcons, obviously, but it's a must-win. And I think with the veteran presence, they will get it done, so I'm picking the Rams. Seahawks at the Niners.
I'm going to throw the first game out for the Niners. That was a horrible, rainy game. I know a lot of people tried to make the excuse that, well, it was only raining bad in certain spots, but the field was completely wet. There was a mist to a downpour at any given point in this game. So I can't blame Trey Lance. I can't really blame the receivers, although Debo still looks great, and I think Ayuk's going to get going. The Seahawks deceptively got a win. I don't think they're actually that good. It was just the Broncos bad there. The Broncos apparently beat themselves with this one. So the Seahawks they got one bright spot in my opinion, and it's DK Metcalf. But you can't really win the game by being the receiver, as you alluded to earlier. That's why the receivers are not MVP, and there never has been a wide receiver MVP. But DK is a great player. He just doesn't have a quarterback to get him the ball like he needs to actually win games. I am going to, throwing out the first game, pick the 49ers to win this at home.
And I'm going to repeat every single word I said about the Rams, about the 49ers as well. Very early on, must-win game. Didn't look good in the opener. Now, of course, we can talk about the rain and the weather all you want. It was the worst weather situation I've ever seen in an NFL game. I've seen snowstorms so bad that they just cleared out the sidelines, like so you could see the markings on the field, and they played in like 2 inches of snow. This was the most unplayable field conditions ever, and that also meant that after the third quarter the game was effectively over because no team was going to score point when it started raining the way that it did. So that being said, though, there's no excuse to give up basically 3 touchdowns on 3 back-to-back drives if you're the Niners defense, even though that was during the only kind of dry period where the field was acceptable to play. It's also no excuse for not scoring a single point in the second half, and for fumbling in the red zone, which Deebo Samuel did, which could have put the game away early on if he didn't do that. At the end of the year, we're going to look back and say how could they possibly have lost that game to inferior competition, no doubt, but they did lose, so they have to make it up, and fast. Now, this is at home. The weather's not going to be an excuse. Seattle without Russell Wilson, in division game, and also similar parallel as we saw with the Rams. Niners are 10-point favorites in this game. Despite the Seahawks winning and them losing, odds makers are not budging. That's also too high in my opinion. Just like the Rams, it should be 5 points or something like that. So I'm not betting on the Niners against the spread, just like I'm not betting on the Rams against the spread. But I will take them to win the game because they're just a better team. And also Trey Lance better win, because I said after this Bears game, I said even though it wasn't solely Trey Lance's fault, the mistakes he's making, given his experience, are completely normal. It's completely understandable. But the pressure that he's under, given that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the team, is not normal. That is abnormal. Because if the Niners end up 0-2 and they lose 2 games that they're both must-win games with Trey Lance, the criticism is going to be real loud real quick. Because Jimmy Garoppolo is still there. And they know they can win with Garoppolo. He's done nothing but win when he was there. And if he's healthy, he can win games. That's what he's been doing, and there's going to be a lot of voices that want him back in, which would not be good for Trey Lance, because it would draw out his development even further if Garoppolo has to take out the helm. So I'm really hoping that Lance gets it together, the whole team gets it together, George Kittle comes back, and they win a convincing game to silence those critics a little bit, because for a young quarterback with such little experience, that is a tough situation to be in, which you really don't want to see that. Bengals at the Cowboys.
Well, I know the Cowboys were absolutely horrible, and they're going to be playing with Cooper Rush, so I cannot pick the Cowboys here. But I want to point out that the Bengals are not nearly as good as they were in that playoff run last year. Joe Burrow was throwing interceptions left and right. It kind of reminds me of the Browns when they came back off of their playoff run a season earlier, and they could not just get it together. Like, it was just falling apart and going right through their hands in every game. I'm afraid this might happen to the Bengals, that there's some kind of Super Bowl hangover here, especially being the losers, and they might not get it together. I kind of want to have more faith in Joe Burrow than that. I think he's going to eventually clean up his interception problem. But right here, this should not be a problem. This is the Cowboys. Even though you are in Dallas, it's the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. There is no way you should be losing this game. So I have to pick the Bengals. But if they lose this, that season looks extremely bad from this point on.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I could repeat the same point again. Bengals win, absolutely. I'm picking that. Lock it in, no doubt. The one thing I'll say, though, it doesn't look to me like they've addressed their most glaring need from last season, which was always the offensive line. Remember, Joe Burrow took almost 10 sacks against the Titans, and by some miracle won the game, which you're not allowed to win a football game if you take 10 sacks. But somehow, by some miracle they did. And, well, they picked right up where they left off last year. How many sacks was it? 7, 8 as well for Pittsburgh. It was ridiculous. So that offensive line is still in chaos, and Joe Burrow is still running for his life. And at some point, it is clear that kind of pressure is going to influence his play, and he's going to start making mistakes and then throw interceptions. Like his play in the playoffs last year was absolutely superhuman. The class with Joe Burrow played the playoffs is almost hard to comprehend given what he had in front of him, and since they didn't seem to have addressed that properly, it's still an issue. It's gonna keep playing him throughout the year, because you need Burrow to be a superhero every time if you want to go back to that kind of success. But you basically laid out the entire point. It is the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. Even if it was Dak Prescott, you have to beat the Cowboys, so taking the Bengals to win. Texans at the Broncos.
Okay, on paper, you have to say that the Broncos is way more talented than the Texans. The Texans have next to nothing as in the way of superstars. The Cowboys have a ton of superstars. Now, the defense is not the defense that it used to be back in the mid 2010s. That was a great defense, and they're obviously not on that level by far if they're going to let Seattle somehow, without a quarterback, win that game. But yeah, in good conscience, I can't take the Texans to do that also, especially being in Denver. The Broncos should win this, and there's no reason for them not to win this. I think Russell gets it going here.
There was also no reason for the Broncos not to win in Seattle. I will say that. And Houston did hold their own in a game that they were supposed to lose. Now, I tend to root for the Texans this year. I like Davis Mills, I like Lovie Smith. They're just likable characters, and I want them to succeed. But of course, logically speaking, this is also a game that the Broncos absolutely have to win. You're competing with the Chiefs and Chargers, who are both looking as advertised, and the Raiders are no pushovers. In fact, they're going to go 8-1 by the end of the season, which I'm guaranteeing to you right now, and already did last week. So you gotta win games. You already had to win in Seattle. You didn't. Now you have to win at your home opener. You better win your home opener, because you're gonna be in some trouble if Russell Wilson doesn't manage to beat either Seattle or Houston, two of the projected bottom 28 teams, or bottom 5 teams in the league. Denver to win because of the star power, but the pressure is definitely on the home team here. Cardinals at the Raiders.
All right, well, right now we have a bone to pick here. Because outside of the time that Derwin James was stuck to Davante Adams, he looked as good, if not better, than with Rodgers. Actually, I can't say better, because we saw him have some just Superman games with Rodgers, but after the first quarter here, Davante Adams looked amazing. Like, he just tore it up. I'd have to pull up his stat line because I don't remember the exact right off the rip. But Davante Adams looks like he did his entire career. So, I don't know, what are they going to do? Christian Watson, or when Alan Lazard gets back? They've got a long distance to make up already. And if this continues like this in any way, shape, or form, and I don't know about you winning that bet. Now, I was almost willing to believe you, but I saw that game and I'm like, hold on now, this don't make sense. But the Cardinals did their best to try to catch up to the Chiefs. They just couldn't do it. You want to believe in that offense? They have all the weapons they need. Of course, they'll be even better when Hopkins gets back, but Hollywood Brown looked like he was going to do what he came there to do, except for the fact that the Chiefs defense came alive and stopped them, and wasn't until the defense got tired that the Cardinals actually kicked into high gear and tried to make up a little distance, but it was just too far, too late, too little, too late. I will take them to get it going here, though. I think this game, probably these two teams are about even, but I'll take the Cardinals to win on the road.
So, how big is the difference really between Davante Adams and random receiver X? I mean, Christian Watson was one instance of not having bricks for hands away from having the same stat line as Davante Adams, because that's an 80-yard touchdown and boom, same exact situation. And I know you can argue that exact situation kind of both ways. Yeah, Davante Adams had a good game. Christian Watson, do your job, and you have the exact same type of game because you play with Aaron Rodgers. Clearly that did not happen though, and I guess that makes the point that if it was Davante Adams in that situation, he would have caught it and he would have scored a touchdown, and that's how it would have been. But my argument is that any NFL receiver obviously has to make that play. That being said, Raiders didn't win, as I kind of expected. Cardinals didn't win either. This is my meteor game for week 2. Hoping that a meteor is going to hit the stadium, because I hate both teams. I'm going to pick the Cardinals. I'm going to go Arizona in this one. Maybe it's still cynicism about the Raiders, but I think Arizona, they played They played the Chiefs. They got blown out, by the Chiefs offense. Fair enough. The Raiders don't have that type of speed on the offensive side. They're going to have to deal with Devontae Adams, no doubt. I think this is going to be the first game where Devontae Adams has a little bit more of a pedestrian stat line. And I'll give you this right now. After 1 week, he is in the top 3 receivers, statistically. I still don't believe he's going to stay there, but he's welcome to try and prove me wrong, of course, for a whole season without Aaron Rodgers. That was my condition after the whole season. Give it 17 games. He's not going to be top 3. But we'll see. Taking the Cardinals to win this one, because the same situation goes for them as for the Rams and Niners. Really, you have to start winning, because if you don't, you're going to be in a tough division. You're going to be left behind, and you're going to want to go back to the playoffs. So you got to start winning these games against suspect opponents that you're supposed to be better than. Bears at the Packers.
I will say right now, I think Devontae Adams is number 2 behind Justin Jefferson. But the Bears, they pulled off the win. There's something to be said for them beating the 49ers defense, which is actually a really good defense. Now, the rain being what it was, who knows? But like we just said, the Packers were absolutely horrible. I bet Rodgers is hoping Allen Lazard gets back because he's really mad at Christian Watson. And I think Romeo Doubs was the number 1 receiver in that offense. But I bet he's hoping for Lazard because he at least has some kind of chemistry with Lazard, and Randall Cobb is just way past his prime, so they're not going to get that going. He ended up just throwing to the running backs most of the time, and they weren't making much headway. But it wasn't a great team. Like, they really lost to... Well, I don't know. Maybe the Vikings are legit, but we think that every year, and then they fall apart at some point, so... Who knows? Maybe it's just their first of the year run, and the Packers will get better. But as of right now, God, it's hard to bet against Rodgers. But I want to say the Bears are much improved over last year. You know what? I'll pick the Bears. I'll pick the Bears on the road. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. 2 things. AJ Brown has more yards than Devontae Adams. I'll be specific about that. So he's number 2 at this point in time. Not
okay. Yeah.
AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
Jefferson,
yeah.
Brown, then Adams. Just to make that very clear. Second thing that I don't like about this game at all is the odds. I criticize it with both the Rams and the Niners, but it feels like the odds makers didn't watch Week 1 because the Packers are 10-point favorites. And with all due respect, and we know Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears per his own quotations, and he does, and he probably is going to win. 10 points is too much given what we've seen Week 1. So the betting, hopefully a lot of the smart money is going to be on the Bears. Not financial advice or whatever, not telling you to do it, but hint, plus 10, yes please. I know it's in Green Bay, and I'm going to pick the Packers to make no doubt about it. I think Aaron Rodgers tends to have his worst game in Week 1. He did last year, got blown up by the Saints, and they played horrible. And then he put back-to-back MVP seasons together, so there's no reason to assume that he's going to fall off a cliff. As long as someone on that team can catch a football professionally, then the Packers are going to win games. And traditionally, games that they win include the one against Chicago, or both of them against Chicago. So that's what I'm going with until proven otherwise. Titans at the Bills.
Speaking of the best quarterbacks in the league, we have Josh Allen, who looks like he's on the trajectory to do what he has done the past couple of seasons, and add his name to the list right up there with Rodgers and Mahomes. The Bills look great. They put one over on the Packers pretty well. The defense looked great. The offense was firing when it needed to, and they just racked up the points here. Titans blew it. I mean, there's not much more you can say about that. They blew it. They were just not good. Yeah, there's not much more to say about this. I'm taking the Bills at home for sure.
Buffalo, 100%. I think top to bottom, they might very well be the best team in the league. Josh Allen is really, really special. And I know he had that one pick that wasn't necessarily his fault, but it's amazing to watch him play. I think he might be the most prototypical quarterback that the league has ever seen, because I've never seen anyone throw the ball like Aaron Rodgers. Josh Allen gets damn close to it with just casual 60-70 yard passes that he can make, basically from his wrist down the sideline, deep corner routes, and he has the running ability that of course no one else has, because no one else has that kind of athleticism, and no one else weighs 240 pounds as a quarterback and runs a 4.5. So just from that standpoint alone, he's probably the most prolific player that there is in the league. And the Bills are going to be good for a long time, just for that sole reason, no doubt. And they're going to beat the Titans, because Titans, they blew it against the Giants, which you cannot afford to do. Now you got to go up to Buffalo, play the best team in the league. Not a good start. So I'm taking the Bills to win this, and they, in my opinion, are also 10-point favorites, which in this case is correct. I think the Packers, Rams, Niners have no business being 10-point favorites. The Bills do. So the spread I do actually like. And then finally we have the Vikings at the Eagles.
I just want to point out, like I always said, Josh Allen is Cam Newton with a bigger arm, and I still believe that. Exactly. Yeah.
More accurate as well.
Yeah,
and
that's
less
true.
injury
So far. I can't even think of any injuries really had so far in his career. Kirk Cousins, the other MVP candidate thus far in the season, is taking on an explosive offense in their own right. Both of these teams looked amazing in week 1. Now the Eagles defense let them get back in the game. Where's my score here? Wasn't it like 35? What am I not? Yeah, 38 and 35.
32, something
so they
like
let
that.
the Lions get right back in the game there at the end. But this offense looks like it can score at any given time. Jalen Hurts looks like he has worked on his mechanics. It looks like he has gotten better as a passer, or maybe that's just having A.J. Brown out there, because we know A.J. Brown is a dominant wide receiver who was highly drafted to be what he is doing. He's just one of those guys. He's a Mike Evans. He's a Julio, he's a DK Metcalf. He's one of those guys. And I'm sure Jalen Hurts is happy to have him out there. Makes it tough, though, in this game, because both of these teams are great offenses. You're going to see a superstar Ole Miss quarterback going up against a superstar LSU quarterback here. And like I was saying earlier, this might be the Randy Moss... I'm sorry? Oh, what did I say?
Receiver.
Oh, of course, yeah. Receiver.
Quarterback.
Like I said earlier, this might be his Randy Moss season for Justin Jefferson there. So, yeah.
It very well
I'm
may.
going to go with the... Should I go with the non-mobile or the mobile? I'll go with the veteran presence and say the Vikings continue winning here.
This is really hard. I think this is the hardest one to pick, aside from the Chiefs Chargers at the top of the show. It's tough. It sure is tough. And yes, A.J. Brown, I think, is about the perfect piece to this offense. Such a synergistic piece to the specific style of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is, because his huge catch radius and his speed makes it more forgiving to quarterbacks that tend to scramble, number one, and number two, tend to struggle with their accuracy a little bit, which is exactly what describes Jalen Hurts best. He's going to make a lot of plays for Jalen Hurts that other receivers would not make. So he fits that offense perfectly and allows Jalen Hurts to play to his strengths, which is to be mobile, to scramble out, to draw a linebacker down, to actually draw the zone coverage shifting his direction, and then be able to make plays on the field, or make plays with his feet if the holes open up. So A.J. Brown is a big acquisition for the team. It's a tough game, really tough game to pick, and this is appropriately, by the way, nearly a pick'em. We have the Eagles at 2.5 points favorites at home, so effectively a pick'em game, which I believe the odds makers got completely right, and I'm going to stay well away from that with my money because I have no idea what's going to happen. But I will agree with you, and I'm going to take the veteran, more proven pocket passer quarterback, because in case that this becomes a shootout, which it has the potential to be, the quarterbacks are going to be even more so than usually asked to throw from the pocket and make plays down the field, make drives happen, extend drives on third down. I think I'm going to pick the more proven passer for that reason. And also, you've noted that we always believe in the Vikings and then they kind of fall off at the end. Mm-hmm. That's the Mike Zimmer Vikings. Maybe it's different.
Yeah.
It's whole new culture change. So maybe this is now for real. And I mean, they beat the Packers. So credit where it's due. For all intents and purposes, we could say the competition that Philadelphia faced, it was the Lions, and the Lions don't have a track record of being very dangerous, so that was kind of a game that they should have won. So to me, the win for the Vikings is a little bit more impressive than for the Eagles, even though of course the offense looked great. I'm going to agree with you on this one, and I'm going to take Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So that's all the matchups. That's the whole week 2. You can give us your picks, and I think we disagreed on quite a bunch of these again, huh?
Yeah, we really did. Lions and Commanders, Patriots, Steelers, Panthers, Giants, Falcons, Rams, Packers, Bears. Man, I'm starting to already regret that Bears pick. I'm gonna stick with it, but yeah.
One more week.
Yeah.
You can switch off of them if they don't deliver this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We'll have some fire, I think. Anything foreshadowing wise in the world of the fantasy football news?
Yeah, going into week 2, one problem that everyone makes in the world of fantasy football, at least if you're new, people tend to make this mistake, it is overreacting to what you saw in week 1. I'm going to tell you guys how to stay the course and do not overreact to week 1.
Does that mean I'm not dropping Allen Robinson?
Absolutely, that's what that means. Now,
right.
There may come a time where you need to drop Allen Robinson, but after 1 week is not what we're doing. And
That's
Trey
what
Lance, for that matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lance, too. I assume Trey Lance has a very high potential as a fantasy quarterback.
Absolutely, he does.
In fact, I assume his score wasn't even, like, abysmally bad in the last game. He had 1 touchdown.
No, I won 2.
100 something, yeah?
Yeah, I won games in 2 leagues using Trey Lance.
You always get the sneaky bonus points from mobile quarterbacks just from those like 40-50 rushing yards that they just get every single game. It adds up for sure.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to that. Even though I'm not playing myself fantasy, I'm using the opportunity to learn in preparation for next season. If you're a fantasy player, you have to check out the Hurry Up Offense coming up shortly after this podcast on this channel. Subscribe, as a matter of fact, and turn on the notifications so you get that every week. Professional fantasy advice completely for free. I don't know why he's doing it for free, but he's doing it for free, and it's on this channel. So make sure you pick that up. 10 minutes of your day to win some leagues on the weekend coming up soon. So stick around for that. All our picks were made. Let us know yours in the comments. Go vote for your MVP. And Smokey, do you have anything to add about these matchups?
I think that's it for this week.
All right. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we're going to see you in the next one.
Deuces.
Check the scoreboard. Ha. Check.